Welcome back to the Health and Wealth Podcast. I'm Ana Ramos, and I'm grateful to be sharing this space with you today. Today's conversation starts with something many high-performing people experience, but rarely do they pause to examine: overwhelm. Not as a crisis, not as a failure, but as a signal. In a culture that often equates wealth with productivity and resilience with endurance, overwhelm can quietly become the cost of being capable, of being responsible, and of being committed. This episode of Health and Wealth asks a different question. What if overwhelm is not a personal weakness, but information telling us that the way we're living and leading needs to be redesigned? My guest today is Jessica Shraybman, an attorney, a founder, and a mother whose professional life reflects this question with remarkable clarity. Jessica built a successful legal practice by being dependable, driven, and available until the accumulation of responsibility, motherhood, and expectation began to outweigh what one person could sustainably hold. This is not a conversation about stepping away from ambition. It's about what happens when success continues to work on paper, but no longer works in the body or in our daily lives. We'll explore how overwhelm shows up, how identity and responsibility intertwine, and how redesigning support systems, including our teams, becomes essential to protecting wealth, being over the long term. So take a breath, settle in, and let this conversation meet you where you are. Let's begin. Jessica, welcome so much to the Health and Wealth Podcast. It is such an honor to have you here. I remember when we first met, how we met, but first and foremost, welcome.
Thank you. I am very happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
And I can't wait to welcome you here officially, personally, next time we're doing another podcast together. And Jessica, I remember when I first met you and you impressed me from day one. You were such a power force as a woman, as a business owner, and later as I got to know you even more so as a human being, as a mom, and you just blew my mind. And you know, there was a point in your life where you took a pause, and I was like, "What is she doing?" And so I wanted to talk today a little bit about that, what that pause meant, and why you did it, and how life is today as a result of that pause. So when I think, or when you begin to think about your earlier years, and we think about success, so we take the word success, right? Can you define what success was like back then? What was your vision of it? How you felt or you wanted to feel? And then after you took a little break, or even today, how has that definition changed?
Yes. So definitely when I first started the law firm, success looked like growing the law firm to its fullest potential, growing the team, growing the practice areas, expanding to new territories, just making it the most it could be. Um, and I really rode that train like full speed ahead for, 6 years. And I think there was a whole combination of things that led to me taking a huge pivot, which, if we want to get into it, we can. And now success looks kind of like where I'm at right now, slowing down, and more than anything, just feeling something you mention a lot, like it's a feeling of lightness. And what work looks like now is very, very different from what it looked like a few years ago. But for me personally and holistically as a person, I'm definitely enjoying this phase of what success looks like for me. Also, keeping in mind that I think my definition of success and maybe everyone's will constantly be evolving and changing. But I think for the first time in a long time, I feel like what my definition of success is and how I feel I'm achieving that success and who I am as a holistic person is all kind of, um, I guess, aligned and in sync, which is a really good feeling.
What would you say was like before, like when you thought about success and what drove you to, to achieve at such short periods of time, such huge success? What was that vision of what success was like? And then what is it today? Like how well today you kind of defined it a little bit already, but what was it back then?
It was just, grow, grow, grow as aggressively as possible, the biggest year over year growth as possible, expanding as much as possible. It was just very much, you know, like get things done sort of mentality, which not to that's not a negative thing, and for many people that's a great day to day, and a great definition of success. But there just came a moment where it wasn't the right definition for me at the moment. And it's not to say that that won't change again. I might shift gears and go back into an aggressive business growth phase at some point. But right now, I'm really enjoying kind of the big, not setback, but step back from that mentality.
Well, I think other things happen in your life, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Then I think it became present to you, and that presence allowed you to realign. And I love your realignment. I love everything you're doing in your process of realigning. What was the feeling back then? So here you're growing and you're seeing the results and you're pushing, pushing, pushing. What was the feeling like back then?
So it also evolved. In the beginning, when I first started the firm, and in that first year, I had set what I considered a modest goal for myself. And I guess it was too modest because I tripled my goal in my first year, which I think kind of, gave me like a hit, like, oh my gosh, I can do this. And for the first couple of years, it was definitely a feeling of like adrenaline and excitement, like chasing the projects, chasing the clients, building the team, and this sense of I'm doing it, this is working. I'm maybe even like I'm somebody or I'm important, whatever it is. And then at a certain point, it was really something, and we did have pretty substantial growth year over year. And then at a certain point, it started to feel like a heaviness. If I know you really appreciate kind of talking about like the visceral feelings of things, and it definitely felt, I guess I could say, burdensome and heavy, like all of the responsibility that I had. And not that I don't enjoy responsibility, but especially as a solo owner, and as the responsible attorney and the managing attorney, and the VP of sales and the CFO of the business, and everything. And at my biggest point, I had a team of about 10, and there was a lot about it that I loved. But it also, I think a few bad decisions that I made in haste, for not for the sake of the growth, but in the pursuit of the growth, really changed things very drastically. And my goal, I mean, in life and in work, is collaboration and camaraderie and a real sense of unity. And a couple of bad decisions really created a very toxic environment. And when I got to this point that I realized, man, all of my time is being spent addressing like this person's concern on this day and this issue they're having on this day, and how this person didn't do this thing and this person didn't do this thing. And I was just waking up every day with a feeling of obligation to what I was doing rather than an enjoyment and a joy for what I was doing. And it really, I mean, it really took the life out of me. Those couple of business decisions that, I would say like bad business decisions, they really, really, really took a toll on me. Ultimately, everything. I'm happier now than I was for quite a while. So, if there's a silver lining, or everything's meant to happen the way it does, I'm thankful for it in that sense. But of course, I wish I could have gotten, I wish I could have maintained all of the joy that I had without making those mistakes. But you live and you learn.
Sometimes we do look at them as mistakes, Jess, but I think that there are more moments in life that kind of forces us to shift, kind of forces us to pivot, right? And sometimes we are in such a go, 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 go mode that we're almost like racehorse, right? Or, why do they put the blind spots on horses? To keep them straight, to keep them going, to not look to the side, right? And I think that moments like that is, I'm sure that there were so many hints along the way, and you were just in such a go-go mode that you didn't become present to them, and then things had to happen to kind of force you to pivot. Would you think, I mean, or can you think about that one moment? Was there one moment, or was it a sequence of moments that you were like, you know what, this is overwhelming. This is too much.
So there were definitely a sequence of moments that led to my decision to let go of my team and to go back to being a solo. But there was also a very clear moment where I knew that the business decision that I had made was just not going according to plan. Um, but even that moment, there had been build up to that. And I have always been a people pleaser. I am these days joking that I'm a people pleaser in recovery. That was very central, I think, to my personality and my decision making for all of my life up until very recently. Um, and so there were many moments where I thought, man, like, why is this so difficult? Or why can't I make this person happy? And I kept trying to address what was making them seemingly unhappy. There were many of those moments where um, today, if I had experienced like one or two or maybe three of those moments, today I would very quickly say, you know what, this is clearly not working. And I can't exhaust myself trying to accommodate you or trying to make you happy. If I'm not making you happy, then by all means, like please go find someone that does, or find it within yourself. More honestly, but so there were a lot of little moments, but definitely a few that stood out as very clear.
And I remember some of those moments because we've had this discussion so many times. And what kept you moving, Jessica? Like, because I think, we as a society, I think that we idealize a lot what entrepreneurship is, right? And we talk about, oh, you have the freedom to do this and you can do that and you can build on unlimited amounts of revenue. And we live in this, it's almost like a fake world of what entrepreneurship really is. Like earlier you talked about, you're wearing so many hats, right? And then you have the pressures of family and the pressures of friends and the pressures of clients, and it's pressure, 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 to the point that it's almost like what are those, like the boiling machines, right? Like a boiling, where the pressure cookers, right? At some point we just like, I can't take this anymore, right? Um, but during that process, what kept you moving? Like what strengths did you find inside or outside that kept you moving?
So, a few things. Number one, again, like the people pleasing, what kept me moving was my belief that I can fix the situation. I can make this better. I can make this be what I have envisioned it to be, which in that scenario was maybe not like the healthy thing to keep me moving. Um, Also, the other members of my team who I had great relationships with and who to this day I still have great relationships with, um, that the closeness that I felt with them kept me moving day to day, and their encouragement of what I had built and the vision that I had. which they also saw and appreciated. That definitely kept me moving. My clients that I was working with, I work with entrepreneurs. I serve as general counsel to other people who are what I like to say breaking the stereotype of what it means to be successful. They're creating their own businesses, they're changing the way that their industries operate, and that really fueled me as well. Seeing being able to help others is certainly something that has always driven me. And then also a component of it, I think, is just my personality and the way that I was raised to be very disciplined. And, even when something is hard, you still work at it. So it's kind of, a combination of all those things.
Well, it sounds like it was a love for the self, a respect for the self, and a sense of the responsibility that that love and self-respect brought, and also at the same time your upbringing, right?
Yeah. On the flip side, maybe I would have benefited from a little bit more self-love and self-respect by nipping in the bud this other business relationship that I had gotten into, rather than, again, like trying to fix something that was just clearly not working. But ultimately, I completely agree that it was definitely very much an act of self-love and self-preservation to decide to let it all go.
So I know that you're a professional athlete, and I admire you beyond words for that, because not only do you have a beautiful professional career, you also are an athlete yourself. How would you, or could you, equate your personality and the way Jessica is, in business and in personal life? How has your fitness, right, your professional athlete, contributed or taken away from it?
I mean, hands down, I attribute my, generally speaking, mental health to my relationship with fitness and healthy living. And it's also an outlet for me. It's something that even recently I've embraced more, and I'm stepping even more kind of into, the version, this side of me that is a fitness professional. I don't think it has held me back professionally in any way. Maybe if I weren't either training in the gym or training, at my training facility, I'd have more time for potential client calls and things like that. But I mean, it's all about balance. So I can't think of any way that it holds me back or is a disadvantage. And it also, with the clientele that I work with, it also really resonates with them because, as much experience as I have behind the scenes, and when it comes to the work that I do with my clients, I am essentially running their behind the scenes so that they can, be the star of their show, whether it's because they are themselves an entertainer, or they are running a business and they are the face of the business internally within their team and externally. And now, as a fitness professional and a competitor, I have always been very camera shy, and now, it really pushed me literally to be center stage. And so to now have that experience of being on the stage, being in the spotlight, and also knowing how to run the behind the scenes, has also, I think, made me a better attorney for my clients.
Yeah, and you're brilliant, Jessica. I've had the pleasure and honor to be able to work with you, and the breath of fresh air and a fresh way to look at things. It's so beautiful to see, and it's interesting that you're working with people who are redefining, the space that they work in. And kudos to you, because you're redefining the space you're working in. When I take a look at your beautiful gift, right, and how you shift. I remember that after a while we talked, and you're like, Anna, I went into this area more because it fuels my soul. Um, Tell us what that switch was like. Like, how did you decide? Yes, I'm going to continue doing what I do, but I'm going to focus it more in this area that I love and I'm passionate about. And then how did you build those systems that now support the life you want to live?
So a big part of it was it's maybe a little harsh to say, but like burning the existing structure to the ground. I a few like one night when I was kind of going through all of this decision making about whether I want to continue down a certain path or change things, I literally had a dream of setting a house on fire. I'm not a pyro or an arsonist, but and that's kind of how it translated in real life. I had to undo everything, and for a while I was questioning whether to continue being an attorney running a law firm completely. And at the time I also became a new mom at the time, and I had worked so hard to put systems in place so that I could take a maternity leave and things like that. And I know that because you were there for it, that that did not happen. And there was definitely, burnout that happened. And I knew, like, I've just created something, or what I have created has become something that I don't want. Um and I was on the verge of just walking away completely, but there was just something really tiny that told me I'm not ready to walk away completely. And so I stepped back drastically, and I guess by letting go of a lot, it created that space for, my mind to wander, for me to think about what I did like, for me to think about what I didn't like. How do I want to be spending my time, my very limited time? And little by little, it came together, and it seemed so obvious when it did come together. Like, of course, like working with entertainers, working with creatives, working with entrepreneurs, nonprofits, like this is all so obvious, and it's what I had always wanted. But as sometimes happen in life, you stumble into something and then you just kind of keep going with that thing. And thankfully I realized, like, okay, I've gone really far down this path of financing and private equity and tech startup companies, but that's not my language. That was also the big thing. Like, I don't speak code, I don't speak technology, I speak art, I speak sports to a certain extent, I speak design, I speak creativity. So I just need to be speaking what I speak. And that also was like a real moment of clarity.
I love that because you're speaking your truth, right? And I think that by you taking that time to take breath, to listen to yourself, one of the recent topics that has come up a lot is your true north, right? And I've always said, I said, we all know what our true north is. It's just that sometimes we don't know because we're not present to it. So in today's world, if I had to ask you, Jessica, what is your true north? What would you say that is?
I mean, I'm pretty happy where I'm at right now, to be honest. I think I have a really great, and disclaimer, like, I don't have life figured out. I will be 120 years old and I will not have life figured out. But for now, for me in this moment, um, just a couple days ago, I realized that I have a really good balance of three P's: professional, personal, and passion. And and I guess that's my true north, is just realizing that what's important to me is that's actually a lot fewer things than than what I would expect.
And it's interesting because after doing a couple, just speaking with a couple of the guests that we've had, and I had a really big aha moment, like maybe a couple weeks ago, about my true north, right? Because you even spoke about lightness, and I also realized that it's like I said to myself, when do I feel the lightest, right? And when I feel the lightest, when things make my soul smile. And I made that my motto, my true north now. So now I ask my question, every time I come across something, I internally ask myself, does this make my soul smile?
You were telling me about that recently. Yes.
And it's interesting because now I've come across that and I'm so present to it now that it's almost like it's easy. Like that little button says that was easy, right? It's like that was easy. To make a decision, that was easy, right? Because I just asked myself, is this in alignment with who I am and what I want for myself?
That's
Um,
amazing. I'm so happy for you for that. And you really have been a role model for me with lightness. You know, your whole theme of health, wealth and health, health and wealth. And, you know, you've always spoken about the importance of that, of being in tune with yourself, being aligned with yourself, and lightness. When I think of you, I think of the word light. And so I think of you often because definitely the lightness that I am feeling these days is very different from the heaviness that I was feeling then. And I've really come to appreciate like the feelings, you know, like how do I feel when my eyes open first thing in the morning? And the way that I feel when I wake up these days is complete 180 from how I was feeling a few years ago. So
I'm so happy to hear that. Well, you're a beautiful soul, you're a beautiful person, you're an amazing, amazing attorney. You've given me so much clarity in some of the things that, were not clear to me. So I'm very appreciative of that. You're also a beautiful mom, you're a beautiful wife, and you're a beautiful friend.
I didn't
So
know this was the make your guest cry episode.
there's a joke, Jessica. When I started being in the wealth management side, um, somebody who I share the space with, he said to somebody else who came to claim one of the clients because he couldn't show up one time, and so I had to go sub in, and the client cried with me, and the guy, the other person was literally making claim that should have been their client, and I said, that's fine, but the person that was sitting next to me that I was sharing office with, he says, dude, get out of here. That client cried with Anna. She's not going anywhere. It's like, she's not going with you. She cried with Anna. So
So that's your secret. Just make them cry and they'll never leave your side.
I don't know if that's my secret. I think my secret is more like helping them connect to who they are, because I feel like there's such a need for that, Jessica. And it's we just it's such a busy highway that we live in, right? And the spaces that we share are so high frequency and all that stuff. And sometimes just taking that moment of pause, that moment of breath, that moment of connection, the moment of asking ourselves, how does that feel? Right? How do I feel? How does that make me feel? And when we can truly be honest with ourselves, we'll discard of so many things in our lives, right? Whether it is relationships, careers, it's going back to the question, does this serve me or does this not? Right? And, my mom, from the time I was like, I think it was like 2 or 3, whenever I have consciousness, right? She would ask me, she would ask me the question, does this serve you or does this not, basically, in Spanish. And my ability, I didn't realize that what that question or those questions were doing to my brain from such a young age. It was like, yes, no, yes, no, yes, yes, no, no. And but the difficult part that I had in the process was getting rid of it, right? And I've learned that process, right, through time. And I'm still learning. Girl, you're gonna be 120, I'm gonna be 140. Hopefully we're both living and laughing at that time, and we'll still be like, look what I just learned today. So you have such a beautiful perspective. And with your perspective, and when we look at ambition, right, today, how would you describe ambition today? And because we always love to give biohacks to people, not in the medical field side, but in life in general, career in general, what biohacks would you share with someone today? Like things that they can do if perhaps they're feeling overwhelmed, but they're not awakened or they're not aware that it's overwhelmed what they're feeling. So what are some of the biohacks that you can give to them that says, listen, these are some of the things you got to become aware of, and here are some of the quick shifts that you can do to kind of begin to shift that side in your life. So what's ambition for you today? And then give us some biohacks.
Ambition for me today is to be less ambitious.
I
And
love that.
yes, yes. For me, my focus these days is because I tend to, when I feel like, oh, I've got like a good balance of things, I could probably take on a little bit more. And then it's just like, it's just like that one extra more that, throws it all off. So for me, I'm these days just being very conscientious about whether or not to take on more. And also being comfortable not in a like more, do more, be more phase, even though I think that in a couple of years I will be better and I will have grown and I will be more in so many other ways that it'll seem ironic that I'm, in a way not avoiding, but just not pursuing that right now. And then a biohack. I mean, it's easy to say something like have a meditation practice or listen to your gut. All of these things that we hear all the time that seem so obvious. I mean, the truth is that being honest with ourselves is probably one of the hardest things for us to do. Um, what I always encourage people is to embrace discomfort and embrace a challenge, because I'm pretty sure it's scientifically proven that like 100% of the time you'll be better on the other side of, whatever this really difficult thing is that you're going through. So, it's like in yoga when you are like feeling a tension in a certain stretch, you don't pull out of it, you breathe through it, you ease into it, you let it take its course, and then after that long stretch you feel so much better. And I think that's the same thing with challenges that we have. So if you're going through something hard, don't quit. Just know that the better version of you is just on the other side of it. And be prepared to be honest with yourself in those times.
I love that, Jessica. I'm just going to bring into our conversation to an end right there because those are such beautiful words of wisdom. And I think it's wisdom also that is attached to experience and to a way, and that experience is what allow you to begin to shift and be more in line with who you are and what's true to you. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
As we come to the end of this conversation, I want to resist the urge to give you something to fix or optimize. Instead, I'll offer you something to notice. The areas of your life where responsibility keeps expanding, the place where rest no longer restores you, and the quiet signals that suggest you may be carrying more than your current structures can support. What Jessica's story illustrates so clearly is that overwhelm is not the opposite of success. Often, it's a sign that success has outgrown the systems built to sustain it. Health and wealth is rooted in the idea that well-being emerges when our health, relationships, career, finances, and personal growth are held in harmony. When one pillar is consistently overloaded, the others eventually feel it too. Redesigning a life that can hold you is not about doing less. It's about carrying the right things in the right way and with the right support. So growth doesn't come at the cost of yourself. Perhaps the question to sit with after listening isn't how much more can I manage, but something quieter. What in my life is asking to be supported differently now? Thank you for spending time with us today. And Jessica, thank you for showing that leadership includes knowing when it's time to redesign, not because something is broken, but because something meaningful deserves to be sustained. Until next time, this is Health and Wealth.